The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by Continental Energy Solutions. Check us out at cesnrg.com. I'm Tim Montague, your co-host. Today on the Clean Power Hour, hackers crashed a major East Coast fuel pipeline, or the major East Coast fuel pipeline. Hard to believe. 630 gigawatts of solar by 2030. It's coming. USA's first major offshore wind farm, Vineyard 1, is fully approved. Pumped to see offshore wind really happening now in the US. And SpaceX is in the news always, this time for refueling rockets in space, but they also planted the SN15. And China is on Mars with a rover. And John has a very strange story for us today that maybe we should talk about first, just to scare the bejesus out of everybody. On COVID-19. Welcome to the show, my co-host and the commercial solar guy, John Weaver.
Timothy, it's been a long 2 weeks since we've last gotten the chat. Hope everybody's healthy in the Midwest. Spring is beautiful, but time to work. Got to get things done.
It's amazing. We're here in May, and we just have another month, and then the sun is going to turn, and the day is going to get shorter. So we better hurry up and grow some solar. But as we were talking in the pre-show, John, this story, COVID in a soda can. If you're curious about synthetic biology and the potential harm that biohazards could do, just Google Sam Harris and Rob Reed. There's a wonderful interview that Sam does with Rob. And Rob is a sci-fi writer and a tech journalist. And he also has his own wonderful podcast where he interviews scientists. Synthetic biology is truly scary stuff, but what's the story on COVID-19 in a soda can, John?
Just a scientist, a doctor who I saw on Twitter, and he commented that all of the COVID-19 viruses that are in the world, the viri, if you were to collect every single one of them, they would probably fit within a soda can. And without a doubt would fit within a jug of milk, is what he said. So somewhere between a soda can and a jug of milk is enough material that it altered the world in ways that we will feel for 25 years. And I just thought that was neat. The fact that a soda can's worth of material, which didn't even exist 2 years ago in any way, shape, or form, was able to do so much. And it probably just looks like a gooey, squishy mess of, gross things you wouldn't want to eat. But that's it. A soda can, one soda can, and that's the whole planet that's flipping out. And millions of people that are going to die and tens of millions who will be greatly affected. One soda can. Just, it's interesting. You talk about the Sam Harris and making some biology that messes us up. Like, for instance, you said in the pre-show, the probability is 1 that something will come that's worse, and that's it. That's reality, and we need to be conscious of that. We do not live in a nice universe. We live in a universe that does whatever the heck it wants, and we are not on the happy or naughty list. We're just another big pile of mass that will get squished. And so, really interesting.
Yep. We're not going to dwell on this, but I wanted to put the podcast that I referenced on screen. So go to samharris.org and then look for Rob Reed. It's called Engineering the Apocalypse, and it's a 3-hour interview with Rob Reed, who's done extensive work on synthetic biology. And just like we need to invest in the energy transition, we need to invest in safe biology. You can't do just one thing. We have to do many things well here on Earth, and including protecting ourselves from potentially engineered biology. And I mean, there's ample evidence that that COVID-19 came from that lab in Wuhan. And some very credible scientists are firmly believe that. So I'm not making that story up. That is not fake news. So This other headline though, John, it does sound a little bit like fake news. And we are, oh, by the way, we're going to do a project of the week this week. We're not going to do that right away, but we're going to show you Keeversville Solar, which is a community solar project coming out of the ground in northern Illinois near Joliet. 630 gigawatts a year of solar. Sorry, I'm mixing up the order on you, John. I'm making you dance a little bit, but that sounds like an incredible number. 630 gigawatts of solar by 2030. And I was just looking at the clip that we're on in the US. You know, we hit 20 gigs last year, and the word on the street is that we're going to hit 40 gigs a year by 2025 and then 60 gigs a year by 2030 here in the United States. So we're going to double in the next 4 or 5 years, and then we're going to triple by 2030. And I think those are relatively conservative numbers. But so what is this annual figure and how credible is it?
So first off, for some perspective, currently, total solar power installed on the whole globe, it's about 650 gigawatts. So the IEA says that in order for us to meet our 1.5 Celsius goals, we would have to, among many other things, install 630 gigs of solar per year. So everything that we've done in the last 20 years, we got to do it every year. So Tim, all the solar you've sold in your whole career, now you got to do that in the year 2030. Oh, and the next year after that. Oh, wait, and the next 18 years after that. So for 20 straight years, Tim, you have to do everything you've done in your entire career. If we're going to hold it to 1.5 C per this analysis by the IEA. And it's cool that this is the group saying it, because they are a very fossil fuel powered group. And, this isn't a forecast. This isn't what they believe will happen necessarily. This is what they say needs to happen. They say 90% of energy needs to come from wind and solar, if that's what we're going to do. And to do that, 630 gigs every year, starting in 2030. So we got to grow about 4x where we are today. We're somewhere in the 130 to 150 range. And that's 4x. That's 2 doublings. We got to double once, double again. And then we'll be to 600. And then we got to do that again 19 more years in a row.
Yeah, so go to IEA.org and Google net zero by 2050, a roadmap for global energy, for the global energy sector. And yeah, the numbers are eye-popping. I'm pinching myself as I wake up to this fact that we're going to double in the next 5 years in the US. And we're just one country. And so and it could get, we need a steeper acceleration to go net zero in time to stop climate chaos. But anyway, we're on a very healthy clip. And so if you're in the industry, buckle up. If you're not in the industry, get in the industry and join us on the solar coaster. So anything else you want to say about this, John?
I posted on Twitter, my response to seeing that report was, I just want to hold my company on the track, and hopefully by the time 2027 comes around, we've we're in it, we're running, we got a hold of something, and we're a part of the machine. And if I can figure that out, then I'll have something to give my kids when I kick the bucket. So I'm just hold on, dude. That's my goal. Just freaking hold on.
Yep. We are accelerating, and all we need, as I demonstrated to myself in this spreadsheet that I made, was to stay on this acceleration of 4 additional gigs per year to meet that 60 gigs a year by 2030. And we're going to exceed that if we stay on the accelerator at a 4 gig clip. Um, but we should probably talk about how the grid is vulnerable. And in this case, it's not just the electric grid, it's the gas grid. And I mean, everybody has probably heard about this story by now. And because it impacted a huge geography. But what is the story, John?
So you could call them hackers, but you could also just call them script kids. We don't know. I don't know yet. I don't know if they're professional hackers, but it seems like they may have been. But at minimum, somebody put some code into the largest shipping fuel shipping pipeline in the U.S. It moves 40% of the fuel that goes to the West Coast, so or East Coast. So pretty much everything going all the way up to like Virginia, this pipe connects to, and it's probable that they're connected with the Russian government. It's and it's probable that they wanted to test weaknesses in our pipeline system. And what's interesting is that these hackers technically they didn't take down the pipeline. The pipeline was actually manually shut down by the operator of it because what occurred is that the hackers took down the billing system that feeds the pipeline. And Colonial said, "Oh, we got to shut the whole thing down." But it takes a long time to restart these pipelines. It seems it's going to take like 2 weeks. It's still down halfway today, and so hackers slipped in. They did a ransomware. So they said, "Listen, we've now locked your computer. We've encrypted it. If you would like access to this encrypted computer or network, I don't know exactly what it was, give us $5 million, and we'll give you the code to unlock it and reinstall." And that's what happened. And they gave him $5 million. But plenty of people did not get gas. When I called my mom and told her she's in Western North Carolina, up in the woods, she went to 4 gas stations and they were all empty. And they were the only ones close to her. Luckily, she doesn't drive much, so half a tank of gas lasts her 3 weeks, 4 weeks. But there were people from everywhere, all the way up to DC. Like I have an aunt in Washington, DC. I told her, "Hey, go fill up." Took her 3 gas stations before she could fill up her car. And this was because of a payment system. So if we're going to move toward a highly electronic, highly digitized power grid, which has wind and solar and everything and batteries dancing, we're going to need to up our security game massively because Solar Edge and Enphase have hardware on every single solar panel. And if somebody figures out a little bit of code and figures out how to slip in, that could be millions of solar systems that suddenly flip out. And you go to California, that's 10 gigawatts of behind the meter. And I bet you 6 to 8 gigawatts of that is powered by Solar Edge and Enphase. And if somebody figures out how to take out those 2 companies, that will affect things in a significant manner.
Yeah, and we forget that, microchips have embedded operating systems on them, and most of those chips are made overseas. And so the security problem is super, super duper hard to solve. And there's many ways in the back door. And so this was what I would call a in the front door hack. And you see the results. And truly, we need to completely up our game for cybersecurity of all of our infrastructure and especially our power infrastructure, because life just comes to a screeching halt without today fossil fuels, tomorrow wind, solar, and batteries, and it's both and. We need a robust grid, and so we gotta up our game. We humans, we're kind of lazy because we have the resources, John. We're super rich. We have 10,000 times more energy than we need. right? And that's why I say to my colleagues, the short game is just not that interesting. The short game is making money. It's easy to make money if that's your focus. It's hard to stay around for 100 million years, which is what Elon Musk wants to help us do. And we're starting to wake up to that, but just really slowly. And that's probably why we don't see a lot of sophisticated life in the solar system, because not much of it escapes its planet of origin. That's the prevailing theory anyway. So, project of the week. I'm so excited to bring a Continental project to our audience today. Hmm, Zoom doesn't want to cooperate and let me show this screen though. Hold on a second. Hmm. We better skip to a different story while I figure that out.
All right. Hey, do we get to talk about the Vineyard offshore wind farm? I'd love to.
Yep, that one's been in the oven for quite a while.
It has been. So this is an 804 or 806 megawatt facility. It's being built out of, I believe, 62 or 63 13 megawatt units manufactured by GE. So 13 megawatt wind turbines. And there's these stats out there that are really neat. Like, for instance, one full spin of one of these turbines can power a house for like a year or half a year. And one spin can power like 12 houses or 15 houses or something like that. It's a really cool project for me because the facility, I mean, I'm pointing at it right now because it's somewhere over there to the right of me. It's probably about a mile and a half. One of the places where hardware will come in, be unloaded, be processed, and sent back out to the ocean. And so my local area will have a job bump because of it. And so this is going to be a big facility. And this is only the start. Massachusetts itself is going to grab somewhere in the range of 4 gigs of offshore wind, maybe more. Rhode Island is doing it, Maine is doing it, New Hampshire's doing it, New York's doing it, New Jersey's doing it, Virginia, all the way down the list. And there's already a 2+ gigawatt facility, maybe 2.6 gigawatt facility that's being developed off the coast of Virginia. And that project, it's going to be a huge project too. I mean, that's 2.6 gigs. So so we're coming toward a period where there's going to be a huge amount of electricity coming from wind offshore now. And so we're going to end, if you notice, I don't know if you were paying attention to California, but the governor came out and he put down 20 million bucks to help develop offshore wind in Cali. And I read recently, 2 months ago, that there were people working to submit offshore wind in Cali into the interconnection queue, and they were getting really close to submitting it. So now I'm kind of, we'll see, but I'm kind of hopeful that in the next month, 2, 6, we're going to see a real project that's on the grid or on the interconnection queue in California, offshore wind. And that excites me because from what I've seen, offshore wind in Cali is going to be big, but we're going to have gigs of it up and down each coast, and that's going to end up being 30%. There may be more electricity that comes from wind than from solar, and I'm totally cool with that because either way, there's going to be a lot of clean electricity from wind and solar. Whoever has the most, it doesn't really matter because you and I are not going to be able to keep up with it, and that's pretty cool. So it's a big project.
Vineyard has been in the making for how many years, John?
Well, one could argue it's been in the making for 20, 25 years because they tried to do offshore wind way back then and it got squashed by rich people. But now this one's further away down off the coast. So I would say at least 4 or 5 years, maybe 6 for the most recent version.
Yeah. Been a long time in the coming, and but it's going to power 400,000 homes. And For 84 turbines, that's just an awesome figure.
62.
Oh, okay. It says
I
calls for
know.
up to 84 turbines in the New York Times story, but
Yeah, they were doing like 10 or 12 megawatt units back then. That was the original permit. They've been updated to 13 megawatt units. So now it's
yeah,
62 or 64 units.
yeah. And that is also an incredible statistic that we're doing 14 megawatt turbines now. When you look around the Midwest, it's mostly 2, 3, or 4 megawatt turbines. And so they've just gotten really, really big. And of course, they are much taller. And taller is better because you get more wind consistently. Do you know
And
what the do you know what the capacity factor is for offshore wind?
it varies, but one should expect above 50%
Yeah, that's what I was
with
thinking, 50.
with winter time being above 60, 65.
Yeah.
The High Wind project, which is the first floating offshore in Scotland, its first winter, 65%. The Block Island project, I don't remember what its first number was, but I remember it was pretty strong. So during the winter time when this is needed at night and during cold periods when there's fronts coming through, it's going to be, 90% when it needs to run. And then in the summer and, when weather's nice and calm, it'll be 20, 30% because of, the nature of the wind. But offshore, it's going to be greater than 50 for the whole of the year. I
Well,
see that you,
while I'm getting the tech fixed on Keeversville,
yeah,
I had to upload the file to Google Drive in order
nice.
to show it on screen. So bear with us; that will be coming. Um,
Can I talk
let's
about
talk.
SpaceX?
Yeah, let's talk about space. It's been a busy couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And as I chided you in the pre-show, yeah, SpaceX has a new contract. I didn't even know about this, John. What is the new contract?
So the contract is to launch. First, they got to launch a rocket to space and position it there. Then they have to launch another rocket that's full of fuel. And then that rocket will fill up the rocket that's already in space. And that is going to be a product that will fly to the moon and to Mars. Because if it can get into space and it, runs out of fuel, but then it can be repumped and shot to Mars with a full tank of gas, that's pretty cool because it's probably what's going to be necessary for the machine to land and take off is to have a full tank of gas when it leaves Earth's orbit. But I'd never seen refilling of fuel in space. And I think this is the first time we've done it on a large scale. Maybe we've done it, I'm pretty certain we've done it with maybe satellites, but maybe not. Sometimes we let the satellites, oh, there it is.
Yeah, so
Man.
there's an image on screen now of what this looks like in space. They're going to connect the two rockets nozzle to nozzle and refuel rockets. And this is totally essential, right? If you want to go to the moon, you need a lot of fuel because you're not only going to land safely, but then you're going to take off and and then you're going to go back to Earth orbit and refuel and then rinse, wash, and repeat. And so we're going to be launching just tons and tons of rockets that are just carrying fuel to fuel rockets that are going to go to the moon or then eventually to Mars. And then we'll have I've heard it referred to as a belt. What's a conveyor belt, basically, right?
Yeah.
Where you've got fleets of rockets that are going to their destination and then fleets coming back and then refueling and doing it again, or taking supplies or people or whatever. It's both end, right? You need all of these things. So what is your prediction, John, on when humans will first land on Mars?
2024.
Wow. You've been drinking some Elon Kool-Aid there, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. He's already got the rockets going up and down. And you know what? The next thing we're going to talk about is SN15.
I
He has
know.
an
We almost forgot.
landed spaceship. Yeah. It was cool. I was watching it live, dude. It was awesome. I was just like, whoop. It's just, they're doing it. They're signing the contracts. You know, maybe they meant 2024 for the moon when I heard them talking about it recently, but I think we'll go there. We're going to be there before 2030, without a doubt, is my opinion. The moon, maybe it's 2024. Their Tesla, SpaceX just got a moon landing contract as well. There's a debate on it, of course, with the big players arguing rules weren't followed, but we're going to it, man. I think it's just that we need something to do. We're getting bored here on this earth, just, you know, reproducing and building cars and buying houses and having stuff. We gotta take some stuff over, some planets out there for us.
Yeah, SN15 landing successfully is a huge deal. Now they're going to start doing orbital testing, and then, you know, the moon. Certainly the moon by 2024. I would be thrilled if we got to Mars by 2030, and that's all good. But yeah, it's probably more on the order of 2030. Um, you know, we I don't know what the success rate is landing on Mars, but it's not the highest. Plenty of things have tried to land on Mars and gone bye-bye or disappeared, or we don't know exactly what happened. And it would just be a shame for that to happen. You know, the first time humans land, you really want to stick that landing so that we don't pull out,
Yeah.
because we're so skittish. And you know, it's an unfortunate nature of ours. Sometimes we tend to waffle, but it is ambitious, but it's totally doable and totally necessary for the long-term survival of the species. And then China landed a rover on Mars just last week.
Yep.
And you know, so now they're on the moon, they're on Mars, so they're giving us a run for our money. And I like that healthy competition. I don't like the competition between Bezos and Musk, them quibbling about that contract. Like, I think that's a waste of time. Like, I mean, SpaceX is, their price to land on the moon was way less than Blue Origin's, and you know, they have the street cred to you know, to say, yeah, we can do it. I don't think Blue Origin really has a leg to stand on there, but we'll see.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know what, I mean, it's good to see that there's multiple parties who are there to argue, but I don't think they're going to get anywhere because SpaceX is actually doing things. They're landing deals, they're landing rockets, they're doing things that no one else is doing. You know, I'm happy to see China landing on Mars because that means we have a wider group of parties who are able to be competent and deliver. We have the Europeans there. We're there's a population of, you know, half a dozen robots living, so to say, on the surface of Mars, and that's kind of neat. You know, there's lots going on. Did you hear about the Discovery Channel starting up a Who Wants to Be an Astronaut series?
No, but I'm really happy that they are. And apparently there's some kind of a prize affiliated.
You get to go to the International Space Station for 8 days, dude. I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna quit solar, and I want to become an astronaut.
But they're hosting a competition to attract young engineers to vie to get a spot on the space station.
I don't know if they're engineers, but it's Who Wants to Be an Astronaut. So yeah, Who Wants to Be an Astronaut? So let's check it out. So the Discovery Channel is launching a new reality show on they're hoping to launch it in 2022. Okay, so next year. NASA hasn't officially said they would allow them on. However, prior space shows did get approved. But you know, Who Wants to Be an Astronaut is that's discovery.com/astronaut. You can apply now. So I'm that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, we need more smart people to get interested in space, that's for sure. So I say amen, and that'll be fun to see how that plays out. I want to talk about solar and agrovoltaics.
Good.
And the Spanish, what I think of as a wind developer, Iberdrola. Am I right? They're a wind developer historically?
Maybe. I'm not sure historically. At one point, I thought they were a fossil company and somebody corrected me and I was wrong. But I know they do some solar. So, maybe
Yeah.
they were historically.
So they have started a competition to vet emerging technologies for agrovoltaics, and it says here um, cost, technological maturity, crop diversity, and level of digitization, among other things. The the challenge with agrovoltaics. I mean, today we can use the existing tech and we can run sheep like you see in this photo here, right? That's a relative no-brainer. You don't need to make significant modifications to the solar structure. Now, if you're going to grow food underneath the solar structure, that's another thing. And there's been substantial, uh, you know, beta projects or experiments done to show that this really can be a win-win. In other words, you get higher productivity from your crops, like grapes or like strawberries that need a certain amount of shade, so to speak. Um, but the structure then being jacked up off the field so that you can run workers and tractors, et cetera, under the array, right? That's the challenge because that gets expensive. And so it's good that companies are trying to foster more research in this area. I think there's a lot of room for innovation. Um, and I'll just mention that I follow a podcast called Just Have a Think on YouTube, and he just did a show on agrovoltaics, and I was astounded how much academic research has been done on this topic. So check that out. And countries like Japan and Korea and China have done gigawatts of agrovoltaics. So um, we here in the U.S., I think we're a little resting on our laurels when we are all excited about pollinator friendly solar, which is a thing and it's growing. And we have ASGA, the American Solar Grazing Association, who's going to come on the show here, I think in June.
Awesome.
Um, but we can't rest on our laurels. We have to continue to push the envelope and innovate and do new things and bring down the costs of how do you grow plants and solar farms.
I'm, working in New York State right now. You hear them talking much about how to optimize our land use. New York State says that a big chunk of the community solar has been built on viable farmland, and that's not going to be able to happen over the long game. We're going to have to start tapping into less viable farmland that has, maybe trees on it, or it's a little rougher, or it's just not perfect. And that's going to happen. And we're going to have to do something in order to work through people's opinions about solar destroying the land, even though it's kind of funny. If you say something like, well, if you grow solar panels or if you install solar panels, we won't be able to grow as much food and we need to eat the food. However, Tim, 40% of our corn goes to ethanol. And if we switched all of our ethanol to food to solar or ethanol corn, we'd be able to power the United States 5-10 times over. So it's a fake argument, but it's an argument that still needs to be circumvented. And that for me is a big thing about agrovoltaics, is that it's going to allow us to be like, all right, you've got a good point. We need to feed each other. Let's combine the two. I also like it for another reason. There's something neat, cool, weird about the combination of multiple energy generation tools. Making electricity is valuable, but making energy for physical bodies is valuable, and they're both energy. So we're combining, we have a multi-energy, this is almost like a microgrid. It's making multiple types of energy to support humans. And if we can figure out how to combine boxes of food generation with solar on top and start moving some volumes of shipping containers, you can deliver a farm, you can deliver a lifestyle to somebody in one shipping container, 2 shipping containers, 5 shipping containers, whatever it is. And that's just kind of neat. Solar plus food actually equals energy plus energy, just in 2 different formats. And I'm just really, really interested in that combination. I think there's something cool there that it just works. It works in the way that we need it to work as an animal living on this earth, fighting entropy.
And here's a link to a collection that you made of Agrovoltaic stories on your Twitter feed, so you can check that out. John is Solar in Mass on Twitter, and you see what we're talking about, though, with these structures that are raised up. I mean, you see a greenhouse there with PV in it, and then some just tall pole mounted.
Yeah, and just keep scrolling. There's a big, long, nice list of different. That's a Chinese plant that's like just giant.
Yeah.
There's lots of different experiments going on. There's even, there's experiments that say if we put the solar high enough and we do wheat underneath, well, that's mushrooms plus solar in Japan right there. But if we do solar plus wheat, we can actually make more money from the land. We won't make as much solar and we won't make as much wheat, but we'll make 80%. And so we'll make 160% of the revenue for the land that it was making by combining 80% solar, 80% wheat. And there's just so many ways to maximize our lands, our value that we have. And I like watching it. I like watching this evolution.
Yeah, it's not an either or, it's a both and I agree that we should restrict land use in areas where land is not a plenty, and have less restrictive practices where land is a plenty. And I am famous now for pointing out that, yeah, we're using a huge percentage of our land base here in the Midwest for growing foodstuffs that aren't necessarily in our best interest, like corn syrup, and raising cattle. And so we just need a few percent of the landscape globally, and we're fully wind, solar, and storage. Well, one of these days this file is going to upload, and we'll be able to talk about Kieversville, but let's keep moving. Solar night energy in Finland and aluminum batteries. So we'll talk briefly about polar night energy.
Polar night.
And so I heard an interview with with the founders of this Finnish company called Polar Night Energy, and they're a thermal energy company, taking electricity and creating molten sand, and they're heating the sand to 600 degrees Celsius, and then using that heat for combined heat and power systems, which are quite common in Europe, where we are not using them widely here in the U.S., but we could be. Wherever you have a city, a dense population, combined heat and power is extremely efficient. And what I don't know here, John, is what is the secret sauce? Like, okay, you're heating sand, and why is that a breakthrough? And I couldn't figure that out. But anyway, there's a growing plethora of these thermal storage companies, and it's long-term storage. This is on the scale of months that they can store this energy, because it's in a hole in the ground, so it's naturally insulated, and so once you get it up to temperature, it tends to stay there. And because we have a plethora of solar energy, you can take solar or wind and then make that electricity, and it's clean. Now, of course, you could use dirty energy too, so it's not necessarily clean technology, but if you use green energy, then it's like green hydrogen. And
Yeah, I don't think there's any new breakthrough here. I think it's just another group who's thrown their hat in the ring. It's a new company to me, so I don't know much about them. But you're right. District heating, thermal overnight, taking solar, wind, hydro, heating up that sand. There's a molten sand and molten salt developments all over the world. I bet you could find 10 plus of them at least. And I wonder if they're all going to get whooped by lithium ion. Everybody keeps saying, "Oh, we need cheaper long term." Yeah, maybe, probably, but maybe we have better power lines and some nuclear and some hydro and a little bit of batteries, and that fixes our issues. That's I like these molten sand ideas, and I'm sure there are projects being deployed in um, residential settings or unique settings with wealth where they're working and where they don't care about the cost of the grid. But it's coming. I do wonder how many of these ideas will win out. Only one or two of them will. But I wonder if we're going to even have a long-term storage classification versus a whole bunch of lithium ions that communicate via computers when to eject electricity into the grid. And so that's kind of, I may be a little reticent, a little hesitant on various energy storage techniques that are outside of lithium ion and transmission, because those are the two that are the biggest. Transmission and lithium ion are running the show right now. Or well, lithium ion, transmission not yet, but maybe this sand stuff will win. We haven't had great success with solar thermal. I mean, the United States is falling with its solar thermal capacity. It's actually lesser every single month, seemingly. So we'll see. I want them to take a swing at it, see if they can store some energy for 2, 3, 4 months. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I agree that the jury isn't out, but I think there's a mounting pile of evidence that lithium ion is not going to be the end all and be all. And I found a story on aluminum ion batteries. Didn't even know this was a thing, but the Australians are using aluminum, and these experimental, granted it's still in the laboratory, cells are charging 60 times faster than lithium ion, and they're achieving energy densities equivalent to or better than lithium ion. So that's really cool, because as much as I love the supercharger network, I want it to be a 5-minute charge instead of a 50-minute charge. And everybody is going to want that. Why wouldn't you want that, right? When you're going on a long trip, you want to be able to just refuel and keep going. And but I thought it was interesting that Forbes picked this story up, and so it seems like there might be something here.
Well, first off, it's not Forbes that picks it up. Forbes accepts stories from all kinds of random people. So anybody can write for Forbes. And that's, one thing I do believe that there will be other fast charge technologies other than lithium ion. And aluminum ion is one path. And then there's just changing the anodes in all these and making them graphene or making them other things. I really question whether we're going to need long-term storage. But hey, man, if we can figure out how to charge a car in 5 minutes, that's no different than pulling up to a gas tank and bing, turn it on real fast. I do wonder about how the grid will handle it. If we got a 50 to 100 kW battery and we're going to charge 50 kW in 5 minutes, what is that? A megawatt? A megawatt of demand is going to be pulled by one car. Are we going to have like 10 megs of demand at a supercharger station at some point? That's going to be a lot of electricity demand. Maybe you'll just have to wait for 10 minutes and share some space with your neighbor. We'll manage it. We'll figure it out, but that's fast. That's a lot of juice, dude. That's pretty cool too. I mean, I wonder how long they last. We got to build the first one, so we'll figure that out. But I I do think there's going to be very, very fast battery charging available by 2025. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and you'll get 300 plus miles. And that's coming. It's coming.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about Keeversville. This is a community solar project that is under construction, and so I took these photos last week, and the cool thing about this site is that it is in the shadow of a nuclear power plant, which you see up here in the upper right-hand corner. That is Braidwood Nuclear Power Station, owned and operated by Exelon. This is near Joliet, Illinois, which is an industrial city just to the south and west of Chicago. 20-acre site. This is a 2 megawatt AC, 2.7 megawatt DC community solar project. We're using the Solar Flex Rack single axis tracker. And you see here all the pallets of modules have been laid out. Most of the tracker is now coming together, and nice little project that we're developing for, or that we're building for Summit Ridge. And this on this note of community solar, if you can't put solar on your facility or on your house for whatever reason, your roof is old, not appropriate, or you don't feel like installing solar on your roof, community solar is a great way to buy directly from a solar project. And you need to have appropriate legislation in place. It doesn't happen just anywhere, although I've been preparing a workshop on community solar, and there are, I think, 40 states now with community solar projects in them. So it is getting to be widespread, but there's only about 20 states that have really conducive legislation. You basically have to have virtual net metering because the array is distant from the people that are subscribing to the array. But if you don't have on-site solar or can't get it, look at community solar. And if you just Google that, or go to ComEd, or go to the Illinois Solar Energy Association, you will find many companies like Summit Ridge that you can subscribe to. So Summit Ridge is a long-term owner operator of these community solar projects. They own about almost half of the community solar projects now in Illinois. And so you will become a subscriber, and then you get 2 power bills instead of 1. You'll get one from the community solar project, and then all of those kWh you buy from the community solar project get subtracted from your regular electric bill. And you still have to have a regular electric bill because you're connected to the grid. And so even if you're buying 100% of your kWh from the community solar project, you will have a bill. But it's a way to directly support the solar industry, create local green jobs, and clean the air locally.
I like community solar. The format of it's weird. I wish more people owned literally 1 to 7 panels of their own, but people don't necessarily want to do that.
That is a structure for community solar as well, right? Where you buy a chunk of the array and then get whatever that chunk creates in kWh per month to offset your, that's a subtle difference. It does require more upfront. So you have to have the ability to make a deposit at least. And, but that's definitely a thing. And I think that model was more prevalent earlier in the community solar industry. That's just my sense. I don't have hard facts about that. But here in Illinois, it's a subscriber based industry. And there's, half a dozen companies that are now giving consumers and business owners access to community solar projects that are built in their territory, in Ameren or ComEd territory. And you can be anywhere in ComEd territory, and that's a very good thing. But what's cool, John, is with the new legislation that's in the works here, it's called the Consumer and Climate, or Consumer First Climate Act, something like that. Okay. This is the omnibus bill that Governor Pritzker has put together as a way to hopefully bring everybody together. There's been several bills out there, and and now we're rallying behind this one. We might get 10 megawatt community solar if that bill passes. Today we're limited to two megawatt AC. 10 megawatt AC would be 15 megawatt DC. And I kind of like that. I like slightly bigger chunks. I think Maine has a 5 megawatt community solar market. Is that right?
Yep.
What are the limits in Mass and New York?
Massachusetts Community Solar is related to its standard program, so up to 5 megawatts AC as well. New York is the same, 5 megawatts. The Virginia program, the New Mexico program, the Michigan program, they all do 5 megs. The non-existent but pending hypothetical program in Pennsylvania, 5 megs. So it seems 5 megawatts AC is a number that a whole bunch of people have settled on for whatever reasons.
Yep. Yeah, I just think the amount of work it takes to develop a 2 megawatt project is not, it's not that different for 2 versus 10. And so there are some nice economies of scale now. Could be tricky to find the infrastructure for 10 megawatt projects. I don't know. That's a question. But we would see a spectrum, of course, in sizes. So I think we should probably wrap it up, John. What dealer's choice? What should we close with?
How about aluminum? You like
Okay.
aluminum? I like aluminum. How
I like
about
aluminum.
Bloomberg New Energy Finance is suggesting that right about now, clean aluminum made from renewables is cheaper just by a little bit than fossil fired aluminum. And apparently there's an inert anode. I don't know much about that piece that helps it along, but I already know that you can buy solar powered steel or aluminum in the Middle East, and BMW has purchased it, the rights to it, so they could use it in their cars. And so it's industry. We're going to clean up the electricity really fast. By 2035, all of our electricity globally will mostly be clean. Our transportation will also start to clean up aggressively fast. Cars, vehicles, trucks, and it's going to go faster and faster. Industry and then building, heating, and cooling will be also very large, challenging areas. And if we can cover aluminum with just straight up electricity, that'd be awesome. They're trying it with steel, with hydrogen, and with straight up electricity. So if we can help, these things move to cleaner energy, that'd be great. And if they're already cost competitive, then we're there. We just have to, do some more refining, scale our factories, upgrade our equipment. But if we're like there and we're 1 or 2 components away, that's great start, man. Great start. Because industry is, probably 10-15% of our emissions. I don't know the exact number, but it's a non-trivial piece. It's a big chunk. And it'd be neat to sell solar panels with renewable aluminum. Meyer Burger suggests that they're going to have a very, very low CO2 per kWh. And I wonder if they're going to have some access to some low hydrogen metals or low CO2, low emission metals. I don't know what their exact plan is going to be yet, but it's going to get bigger and other people are going to talk about it. And BMW instantaneously snapped up that available solar powered aluminum or solar powered steel, whatever it was, instant. There's going to be a lot of people who would demand it. I would demand it. I would tell my customers, no, we got to do solar powered aluminum. That's it. I'd lie to them. Tell them there's no other aluminum available in the world anymore. It's all solar powered. So that's what we're buying. It'll be okay. That's cool.
Yeah, I think this looks very promising. It sounds like there has been a technological breakthrough that makes it cost competitive, and it's going to happen because it's cost competitive. So I want green solar panels. I want everything that goes into the solar panel to be green and recyclable and thought about, for 50 years of how do we repurpose these materials at the end of life, and truly cradle to cradle manufacturing. It's totally possible. We just have to decide that we're going to do it.
Did you see the wind turbine headline? Vestas, they said that they've done a little work and they now know how to fully recycle their turbine blades.
Yeah, I did hear that story, and that is good news, because those blades, of course, they do wear out, and so being able to repurpose them is a good thing. Real quick, you had a story about Starlink update. Did you get your Starlink yet?
Nope, no communication yet.
Yeah.
Nothing yet. I'll let you know though.
Yeah. So if you want Starlink, you better order fast, because it's becoming very popular, and increasingly they seem to be getting the go ahead from the FCC to deploy the number of satellites that they want to, so that the service is global and robust. And there's also whisperings that they're going to go public. And yeah, I would agree. I think that's probably going to be a thing, as it's just a fuel source for SpaceX. Elon wants to go to Mars. He doesn't care about anything else, really. He pretends to care about other things, but it's all just fueling the rocket to Mars.
I saw him suggest the global annual wireless broadband market was $1 trillion per year. So if he can tap into, whatever percentage of that for FaceBacks, whatever billions, it's a couple rockets every year. I mean, he needs one every like 5 days, but you got to do a lot more sales for that, but he's working on it.
Yep. So how can our listeners reach you, John?
They can yell really loudly out the window, or they could go to my website, commercialsolarguy.com. LinkedIn, Twitter, anywhere on Google, type in Commercial Solar Guy or John Fitzgerald Weaver, and you will find me. How about you, Tim?
Very similar. You could yell really loud, although you'd have to yell really loud. Or you could just go to cesenergy.com. That's the landing page, and then you could go to /podcast and take a look at all of our wonderful clean power hours here. Today we're recording episode 45, and check out the Meyer Burger Show if you haven't seen that. That is our most popular interview to date. But here we are, week in, week out, reporting on solar, wind, storage, and established and emerging technologies. So, and then I also do interviews with people like Jason Steinberg at Scanifly. They're using drones for design and engineering in both residential and commercial solar. I interviewed my brother, Ty Montague, who is the author of a very good book called True Story. And we talk about how capitalism can be a force for good. And he works with executive teams to help companies find a higher purpose. And as I said earlier in the show today, it's easy to make money. It's hard to make a long lasting impact here on Earth, but capitalism can be a force for good. And then Solar Economics with David Loomis and the Energy Switch. That's Peter Kelly Detweiler's new book. So check us out at cesenergy.com/podcast. Thank you for joining me, John. And thank you for listening. Let's grow solar and storage.